Hello and welcome to another episode of Building a Better Broward, a format where we sit and talk to individuals from and around the community who can provide information that's beneficial to what we believe will build a better Broward. And with me today is a dear friend, a guy that I've known now for 20 years, a guy that I truly respect and very professional with what he does for a living, Anthony FaJardo, who now is the director of the Department of Development Services with the City of Fort Lauderdale. Anthony and I go way back. We were actually co-workers together many, many years ago, and now you've taken over the realm of being the head of the department. Welcome today, Anthony.
Thank you.
I just want to take this opportunity to ask you one question. Can we just talk?
Sure.
Absolutely. Good. Let's just talk, man. So let's talk about your position as director of Department of Development Services.
Yeah. So I, like you said, I came to the city in 2005. I started as a planner, which is what I came from before that. And before that, I was in conservation. So I had a little bit of a varied background. And then I was a planner for about 4 or 5 years, and I became the zoning administrator for about 6.5 years. Mm-hmm. Which I think, set me up really well to run it's amazing how much zoning is involved in everything that the city does.
Yes.
But took over the department in 2016. Did that for right around 5 or 6 years, and then went to the city manager's office for 3 years.
Right.
And then now I'm back at DSD as the department director. It's really been wonderful. The people there are great, and I really believe in what we do and how we do it, and engage in the community and trying to just, make life a little bit better and easier for people, whether it's the developer coming in with a mega development or an individual with a single family home or a renovation. I want my goal is that everybody gets treated as well as possible. Streamline process here. Try to get you through, We're going. Not everyone loves the needs to go. I joke all the time, I don't want to be the department of motor vehicles. So I don't want people to look at me sad when they come in the building.
And feel like it's a place of doom and gloom.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. We don't always have good news to tell you. So we do it in a way that's congenial and respectful and try to be helpful.
Let's talk about those services, the different services that are provided within the department. You want to go through those?
Sure. Currently, right now, which this is about to change, and I'll get into that a little bit. But right now, DSD is zoning, planning, landscaping, engineering, building permitting, code enforcement under community enhancement, as well as housing and community development. We also have arts and culture, and obviously we have administration.
Yeah.
But I think that's it.
And a lot of times people don't, one of the things that being a resident and an ex-employee of the City of Fort Lauderdale in that department as well, the magnitude of the many, many types of services that are provided in that one department and how impactful those services are for building a better Broward, building a better Fort Lauderdale. And when you talk about zoning, and then I know you've had a lot of experience in zoning, and you talk about planning, we've had a lot of experience in planning, and then the administration with the city managers with office which oversees, an entire city. When you talk about zoning, a lot of times people aren't aware of the fact that zoning kind of dictates what you can and can't do on a piece of property.
Yeah.
And through our experience together, we've had conversations with people from the community who may come in thinking that they could do one thing only to find out that the zoning won't allow you to do that.
Or to see a development going on next to them and think that shouldn't be allowed there, and they just never understood that it was always perfect.
And going back to the planning side of it, because these zoning districts are created through a planning initiative, which is done many, many years in advance of the structure actually occurring on the property.
Exactly.
And so how do you get that information out? How is that? I know you have to do with with some types of development, there is a public notice that's required. But you want to talk about that a little bit there?
Yeah, sure. So over the years, our public notice requirements have become more and more in-depth, right? So initially, you really just had let's say back in the day,
Yeah.
when I first started, you had the basic legal notice requirements, right?
Right.
Signposting if it's a big enough development, maybe some mail outreach, but not really a lot. Over the years, the city commission's always been very engaged with the community here in Fort Lauderdale, more so than I've ever seen any of my previous roles in other municipal organizations, government organizations, I should say. But, we've always been directed to engage the community at a very high level and a very in-depth level, basically to try and get the information out as much as possible. So over the years, our notice requirements have expanded.
Okay.
But even though they've expanded, we try and go beyond that as well. So for instance, we've added notice requirements within certain distances of certain types of development, which we never had before, that required mail notice or public participation meetings. So the developers are required to have a meeting and invite the public to come in and speak to them prior to moving forward through the process. The whole goal is to the whole goal is to get the information out there.
I get you.
Allow for the comments to come in,
Yes.
allow for an opportunity to clarify anything and to answer questions. And at the end of the day, it doesn't always result in what people feel they should be happening in terms of the development that they're getting, but it does allow for that conversation to occur. And if adjustments can be made to address their concerns, we're happy to advocate for that. Sometimes we're successful, sometimes we're not. If we have a legal leg to stand on to try and force the issue, we'll do it if we think that's something that we need to do. But it really does help, especially when getting into more of the public meetings like planning and zoning board and city commission, because the first thing they'll want to know is, was the public engaged and to what extent? And I don't want to be up there.
Right.
Well, yeah, we missed this group of people over here. So just to give you an example, over and above those typical notice requirements, we'll let people get in or sign up for our email lists, which will basically send out all the agendas. So right now we send out privacy agendas for all of our meetings, DRC, Planning and Zoning Board, Board of Adjustment, Historic Preservation Board, to all the HOA presidents. But if an individual wants to sign up for those, we'll add them to the list and they're getting them as well. And they can use that as a means to find out who the planner is that's assigned to it, their contact information, call the department, talk to people, try and get more information as they need it.
And one of the things that I've had an experience with in the past is that people are still hanging on to the way things were done years ago. And I had an individual, maybe a couple of individuals, come up to me and they said, well, we're not sure that we're going to support what happens on that property because we are not going to be aware of it. And so we don't want to support something that in the future, something gets built that we don't know about it. And I'm like, no, it doesn't happen like that anymore.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a notice that's going to be out. There's going to be opportunities for the public to be aware of all the types of developments, especially at the level that you would have major concerns with the larger developments that will be impactful. Obviously, it's, even down to a single family home. I mean, if it's zoned for a single family, not a whole lot of public participation in that, it's just a one home. But I'm talking about major developments. And sometimes there's this question about, well, environmentally, will that project be an impact to us? And I'm like, it's not like that. There's an environmental review.
There's a lot that goes into it, and I don't think people really understand that, or there's maybe a lot of concern that it's something that's being missed. But we have several regulations that we have to abide by. Some of them are regulatory, meaning they're by other agencies that we have to comply with. Others are our own. So, for instance, one of the things that comes up all the time is, retaining water on site, right? Yes. Especially after what happened in 2023 in April. There's a lot of PTSD out there. Anytime it rains, and it was raining last night, and I was kind of like twitching a little bit. What we require is the first inch of rainwater to be maintained on site. So that requires the developer to figure that out, however they do it. They can do it through exfiltration, French drains. They can do it through retention or detention areas. But all that gets looked at. Levels of service for traffic. We analyze that as well. So there's a lot of components that go into that, either mandated by our comprehensive plan, our unified land development regulations, our code of ordinances, or an outside regulatory agency. So it's very thorough. It is very thorough, and it's something that it's hard for people to understand what actually goes into it, because it is a lot, and it takes a lot.
It takes a lot. I mean, it isn't as if someone can come into your department on a Monday and have a permit to build something on a Wednesday.
Not on that scale. No. And then everything gets reviewed. A lot of that gets reviewed at the DRC level, which is the entitlement process, right?
Yeah.
So you get to DRC, you get to Planning and Zoning Board, and maybe ultimately the City Commission, depending on the type of project. And then you're granted your entitlements, but you still have to go for building permit.
That's right.
And everything that's happened at the DRC then gets pushed into that process, and more analysis occurs at that level, because now you're getting into more detail with it, right? So that's when the rubber's really hitting the road on the project, and those kind of Florida building code requirements kick in. And ultimately, our goal is that the DRC and the entitlement process up to City Commission is to have a buildable project.
Right.
And I think 9 times out of 10 we accomplish that. Sometimes you get to building permitting and you realize that this just didn't work, or the developer has decided that they need to change the programming a little bit, because maybe the market has shifted since the time they started this project. Because the other thing people don't understand is for developers, they may come into our process, let's just use a year, right, in January, and maybe they get through the entire process sometime for an entitlement, sometime in, let's say, April, just to be conservative.
Okay.
But for them, they've been planning this out for sometime a year to 2 years in advance. So for them, the process is years.
Right.
So they're always looking for ways to streamline, which I get. Time is money, and we do have to do these things. And so, we're trying to make sure we work with everybody to have a good product, so that when it gets to that next phase, you don't really have to backtrack. But we do have processes for that too. Administrative review.
Absolutely.
And sometimes that goes all the way back to the commission, depending on the extent of what they're talking about.
And I think the general public isn't aware of all of those different steps that a development has to go through before you could put a shovel around. And a lot of times there's this perception that, city's not looking at this stuff. They don't really care. They just issuing these permits, and it's complete opposite.
Yeah, it's complete opposite. Or that, why weren't we ever told? We're just now finding out about this. Well, I mean, at some point, the conversation does have to start, and have to start at when someone's coming new into it. If you're a neighbor or whatever, sometimes it can seem like this has been talked about for a while. And it kind of has, because developers, like I said, put a lot of time and effort into these projects. But until we get like a firm application, there's really not a lot for us to discuss. We do try to give heads up to communities, especially right now with the Live Local projects. Just make sure the district commissioners are aware you have a Live Local project that's possibly coming into your district,
right?
And remind them the state statute preempts us from
the city from that. It's a lot complete out of your hands in that point.
So we have to do it administratively if they meet the criteria. And we've had a couple of those projects come in, and we've done that. I'm surprised it's not caused as much of a problem as we initially anticipated. There's a lot of, you would imagine that could cause a lot of people to be concerned, and people have expressed concern. But I think as we're going through the process, they're feeling more and more comfortable. At least with the notion that the state has preempted the city.
And I think that's an understanding that has to, because having been in your position, you have to explain that to people when they to the everyday community person or resident who's asking those questions, and you say, well, listen, we're obligated to comply with what we have in front of us. We can't go and make rules up. The rules have already been made for us, and we have to make sure that those rules are complied with. And that's our only role. I mean, sometimes we get criticized, or your department may get criticized for, well, how did you allow that to happen? Well, the rules are the rules. The codes are the codes, and,
and being able to speak to it in a way that people can understand. You can get out there and you can use complicated planning language in any field. Engineering language, your attorneys will use language, and no offense to anybody out there who's an attorney, but sometimes it's a little difficult for people to understand the nuances when you speak too technical. And so having the ability to kind of, get those concepts across to the average person who doesn't really talk about these things on a daily basis. They have in their minds what they think should and should not happen, and that's fine. Sometimes it aligns with what the regulatory agencies have stated, but a lot of times it doesn't. And it can be a challenge, but it's something that obviously is needed. People need to be able to understand these things and have those conversations. And the elected officials need to be confident that we've done the best we can to get that information across to people so it is understood and people know. Maybe they didn't get exactly what they wanted, but they understand why.
And I think you're fortunate enough now, Anthony, to be governed by a group of elected officials who really, really, truly have the city at heart. They want to see the best for this community, for the city of Fort Lauderdale, and you guys are working hand in hand to make sure that occurs through a process that's been provided to you. Let's kind of talk about a little bit about code enforcement. There's been some talk in the past about over enforcement, the fact that some people believe that there's not enough code enforcement. That's always a very sensitive subject matter. How are you guys dealing with that in terms of
and that's become more of a challenge over the years. So the state also passed legislation that we cannot, other than rare occasions, take anonymous code enforcement complaints. So unless it's a life safety issue and it has to be an apparent life safety issue, you can't phone in something anonymously, which kind of changed the game a little bit. People are very concerned about retaliation when they call them code complaints. So we struggled with that for a little while. I think the message is getting out there that it is what it is. In terms of code enforcement, it's a balance. It's a fine line balance, right? You have areas of the city that you may drive through and look at and like everything here is beautiful and wonderful and well kept and da 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 da. It's not that we don't have code enforcement go into those areas. We do, and we have all our officers are assigned to specific areas of the city. But then you have other areas that are more of a challenge. Maybe the properties are a little bit more of a disrepair or the yards are overgrown. We try to be very careful whenever we do any code enforcement activity to address a certain issue. Like we won't go in and, for lack of a better term, target an area.
Right.
We'll do it citywide.
Right.
If we find that there's a problem here, it's probably going to be a problem over there.
Right.
And it's something that we should be looking at. Now, sometimes there are some nuances to that as well. We had a recent issue where we were looking at artificial turf that had been installed in the swales and our code doesn't allow for that. However, the state is contemplating language to be adopted to address artificial turf. But right now,
Euroscape, is that kind of coming into play?
it sounds like that's what it is. Part of it is a maintenance issue. Part of it is an irrigation issue, right? We live in an area that we don't, access to water is starting to be a concern for us. We have a new,
There's water for
reverse osmosis plant. And I'm sorry, not reverse osmosis. I forget the name of it. But, but those are real issues. And for irrigation, that's a way to address it. Now, what does that mean in the swale if you plant something? Because in our city, property owners are responsible for the maintenance of the swales. It's true. Yeah. If they go in and they put in a material that can't easily be replaced, when we go in and have to do repairs, what does that do to complicate the situation? Yeah. And in a lot of parts of the city, that's already happened, right? People put irrigation in their swales. I bought a house not too long ago. It had irrigation in the swales. Okay. I'm like, the city ever comes and rip it up, I got a problem. So, it really is a challenge, but the way we deal with it is, we try to stay as engaged as possible with our homeowners associations. Matter of fact, I was just at the Dorsey River Bend Homeowners Association last night. Code was there. They did a great job. They got applause.
Applause code, right?
Yeah. So they were very happy with it. And basically what we do is we just tell them, here are the issues that we've seen in your area. Here's what we've done to try and address them. Here are the number of code cases you have. Here are the cases that are more prevalent. And then get feedback from people.
Gotcha.
But it is, there's a lot of discretion of the code officer. They're in the field, right? They got to be able to make decisions on their own in the moment. And we work with all the officers very diligently. Portia and Katrina and community enhancement, they meet with their staff on a very regular basis.
Yes.
They talk.
I'm very impressed with them, man. They really are in this job. They are really, really people that you can be proud of to be, within your division.
I'm grateful every day for the people I work with. Portia's been nothing but amazing since I've met her. She's been at the city for a while now, so she does really good stuff. And it's probably a good opportunity to tell you that our department is actually going to be split up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So right now we're DSD, so Development Services Department.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be split up into DSD and then CSD, which would be Community Services Department.
Okay.
So the concept there is that you have all your things for permitting, right? So that is planning, zoning, engineering, landscaping, building permitting.
Okay.
That will be peeled off. And then CSD will be everything else. So community enhancement and compliance, the cultural arts, BCD, that type of stuff will be a separate department. So the city manager felt that more aligned with what cities, our residents' expectations were. You know, when you're coming into the department, knowing what you're there for and who you're engaged. And as we all know, the titles mean a lot, right? We used to be the Department of Sustainable Development. It confused everybody. There were valid reasons for naming it that, but it really wasn't helpful in the public's eye. You know, they're like, "What are you coming in here for?"
Right.
I got to get a building permit for a shed. I don't want to. I'm not talking about
Sustainable development, right?
Yeah. So you know, we then changed it to Development Services Department. But yeah, so that's going to happen in a couple of weeks, actually. Yeah, it was part of the budget process, and the budget starts October 1st, so we're getting really close. So yeah, for a little while, we're still going to probably function. It'll be appear that we're still one department, but Portia will be running that.
Fantastic. So you talked about building permitting, and I remember the time when people used to come down to the city with a big over their shoulders, all these big plans that they would lug in and flop down, and then in that back room there were shelves of so many different plans, and that a wasted amount of paper, in my opinion. But now, you know, over the past few years, everything has become electronic.
You remember the first tour you gave me of the building?
I do.
Back in the like, these are all we get you one day. I'm like, this place sounds sweet. So that was a fun game. Yeah, no, technology has been a really big help. We have gone pretty much fully digital. I'd say we're at 98% fully digital. There are still some situations where we'll accept paper plans, but we are really driving towards a digital environment, and it is so helpful because, you know, on the face of it, you're like, oh, paper versus digital.
Yeah.
But the thing with paper, I got one version of that. So we got 15 people that got to review it. That thing's got to pass from my hands to your hands, to the next person, to the next person. Digital, they can all be in that environment at the same time through our land management software, and they can all review it at the same time. They can all make comments at the same time. So it really shrunk down.
It has really helped. I can tell you that.
In tracking,
yes,
we had a digital. It's basically a gun, and so we would spend a lot of time with permits that came in, these sets, putting these IDs on them, these RF transponders on them, so that we could track down, because we were losing things. It's just your volume was too big,
right?
And so that helped solve that problem. We'd go around with the gun and kind of point it around the room until it clicks, and where he's okay, it's over there, buried in a bunch of stuff. Now that's all held in the software. It's super easy. You can access it either with the permit number, the address. You can use wildcard searches to find whatever you want. And then when you're in the permit itself, you know, those things are dozens to hundreds of pages, depending on the size of development. You can search through keywords. You can go directly to page numbers rather than having to flip through a big stack of stuff. And then just the logistics of moving around paper.
It makes it so much more efficient, in my opinion, because we struggled with that initially, trying to get the right company to come in and make that transition. Yes, and I know you were a part of that, and as well as myself, and it was pretty painful because that conversion from paper to electronic, you had to be on point with things, and people had to adjust to it, especially those who were old school kind of guys and architects who didn't really want to go, to the electronic version. They were so accustomed to having those. Which I have a question for you. Those paper, big paper files. What happened to those? I mean, because there used to be, so many of them. Were you able to keep those, or is there a room that some of those are still?
We have gone through a process, and we are in year, I want to say 4 or 5, maybe even 6, of digitizing everything that we have.
Oh,
So our goal is to get rid of the paper versions and just have the digital version that we can, which will be easier to access.
It makes so much sense. Yes.
I envision, well, Acela, which is our land management software that we do this all in. People have access to it now. You can sign up, you can get a user access, and you can find whatever you want. You want to see what the plans were for, I don't know, Ex Las Olas.
Mm-hmm.
You can go in and look. So there's some things we have to redact, obviously, because if you're talking about life safety issues or public facilities that have to do with fire, police, or infrastructure, you can't look at that. But a lot of it's available online now, and our goal, at least my goal, is to eventually get all the records digitized.
Mm-hmm.
So remember our old records department?
Yep.
Those giant drawers.
Yeah, with those microfilm,
microfiche and all that stuff. But that was turning to vinegar.
Yep.
Just over time, that medium just dissolves.
Yeah.
And so while we don't have to keep that stuff per the government schedule of records, we think it's a benefit to the community right now, and so we try our best to maintain it. And since it was deteriorating, that was a good moment to say, you need to pull the trigger on those guys, get it moving. So we're getting close. We're getting pretty close. If you go in now, that area that you're talking about, a lot of blank shells. And so we're really hoping that, maybe in another 6 months to a year, we can start removing those shells and kind of get some of that clutter out of the office.
One of the other features I noticed that you guys have implemented, which is very, very positive, in the planning initiative where you guys have the urban design and development of these different types of projects that are coming through, there's actually a site that the city has that's coming through your department where you could go in and look at developments that are under review or have been approved. All you need to do is go into an area and you can really, that information is readily available. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So if you go, if anyone is interested and they go to the city's website, go to the department website, so DSD, and then go to the urban design and planning link, or you can just Google urban design and planning Fort Lauderdale, will take you right to it. Down at the bottom of that page, there are blue squares that have different pieces of information in it. And one of them, I think that one's under planning initiatives. Anyway, when you click on the correct one, I might be the name wrong, but there's only 6 of them. So when you click on the correct one, you're going to get an option to look at these things in almost a 3D environment. And so the company that we use is called Gridix. They go in, and it's basically, if you picture the zoning map, it's like the zoning map on steroids. You can turn layers on and off. You can have it render buildings that are under review, render buildings that are approved but not yet constructed, and render buildings that are constructed. You can turn it. You can look at all the metadata that includes like how many units, how many square feet of restaurant, how many square feet of commercial, how many hotel rooms, if that applies. It's a lot of information. It's very helpful. We worked very hard with this company over the years to get it really refined to it being as accurate as we could. We had a little bit of fits and starts with that. It wasn't really, the information wasn't really totally reliable at first. I'm told now that staff has gone in and re-reviewed it. They said it's very, very accurate, and they're very happy with it. It's a wonderful tool. It really, really is, because you can look at anything that's going on here. You can see those little dots to show you where these things are proposed, and if you're in a certain area, you can see how far they are in proximity to you. I mean, it's really interesting. It's cool.
That's amazing, because I'm from the old school, where you had to go and tell somebody. We pull this map out. We're gonna try to. Then we get remember the scale. You would do a little scale. You would look with the scale on the paper and it's about 400 feet.
I pulled my scales the other day when I switched offices. They had dust on them. I'm like, when's the last time I used to use them all the time.
That was a part of what we did. You had to do it. It's amazing how technology just has brought it to another level, man.
It has.
And you and I'm so excited from the fact that, Anthony, you've been so tremendous in your efforts to bring something positive to the city. And ever since I've known you, you've been the type of person who resolving problems. See something, there's got to be a way to get there.
Yeah.
And you do your best, to make that happen. And that's
my message to staff is that, we're a government organization, and I get it. I've only ever worked for government organizations in my professional life.
I get you.
The federal, regional, county, you name it.
Yeah.
I've worked for all of them. And I get that we have processes in place because we function better than we function better doing that than we do acting like the private sector.
Right.
We're not doing it for the money. There's no motivation there. You're trying to put process in place. But what I've told staff is like, not everything fits into a neat box, right?
Right.
You need to feel comfortable, and I want you to feel comfortable that if you need to color outside the line a little bit, it's okay to do that. I'll back you up. Don't do anything illegal or
Right. No. Right.
But you
But
know,
expand your mind.
exactly.
Just-
Don't worry about something if it's not clean. You know, because everyone comes in with their own story, right?
Right.
And their own need. And sometimes, I think a majority of those times, those do fit into our process very well. But you'll hit outliers out there all the time. And so
Right.
that's life, right? And I've told staff over and over again, you know, as any of us that are in a leadership position, we're here. I basically, my message to them is, I really work for you. You don't work for me.
I swear.
I'm here to make sure you have the tools you need to get your job done. I'm here to make sure you're happy at work to the extent that you can be.
Right.
And that, you know, like you said, we're here to solve problems. You know, everyone should be able to put themselves into somebody else's shoes, even for a moment. Empathy is a very important thing in business to me.
Yeah.
You can't go in thinking, it's my way or the highway. And this person, you know, they didn't give me that one little piece of information of the application. They didn't fill it out right. I'm just going to kick it back until it's incomplete and not give it any specificity. You know, we really need to be, and I think every organization should do this, as customer service as possible, friendly as possible. You know, we talk about this stuff day in and day out of that office. So for us, it's second nature. You use terminologies that aren't very common in most people's vocabulary, right? And so having somebody come in with a problem, I don't want them to leave more frustrated. I'm hoping to leave less frustrated, but if they leave as frustrated, I guess that's a win too. But you know, we really should be helping people. And one of the things I used to say when I was zoning administrator, if people come in and say, you know, I need this now, I need this now, I need this now. I mean, look, if the answer you need is right now, the answer is no. It can't solve it for you. Give me a day or two or a week
to figure it out.
Yeah. I'll reread the ordinance. I'll take a look and see whatever options we have. And maybe I don't get you from point A to point B the way you wanted to, but I might be able to find another path for you.
Absolutely.
Or some alternatives that are close for you to consider.
Yes.
And that's really what I want staff to do. It takes a little more time, but I honestly feel like in the long run, it saves you time.
That's right.
Because instead of all this back and forth, it's still wrong, it's still wrong, it's still wrong. And the applicant going, I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
Give them the reference, explain it to us, take the time to pick up the phone and do it. Just do it over email.
Right.
And if needed, have a face-to-face meeting or a Zoom or a Teams meeting so that you can get them on the same page. Because I really think, there are people out there that do things for the wrong reasons, but the majority of people are doing it for the right reason, and they're really just trying to.
And I think that's important to recognize. I think when you look at even the smallest or the biggest developer, in the long run, the city wants to see that development happen positively. They want smart development. They want it to be as seamless as possible. And the developer wants that as well. So we all want the same thing. The path to get there is what's important. Steps can't be missed, but along that process, we can enjoy the path, right? We can enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
And they used to, you've heard me in the past say to staff, you're here probably more than any place else other than doing your, you're there from the morning to the afternoon, right? You might as well enjoy that time. You might as well enjoy what you're doing. You might as well try to be as productive as you possibly can, because by the time you get off, you have enough time to get home, make dinner, eat dinner, maybe watch a little bit of television or whatever you like to do, and then you sleep, and it starts again in another few hours. So you need to take that time, as you said, Anthony, to make it an environment that people are going to love coming to. And I applaud you for that, because you've always been that kind of person. You've always been the kind of person to say, listen, we're going to be here. Let's do the job. Let's make sure we get our job done now, but let's not make it so painful. Let's make it something that we can all...
I've had terrible jobs. I've had bad bosses. And I can tell you that, like, I don't want that for anybody. And honestly, I take a lot of that from your time leading the department. When we merged into one department, that was a challenge.
That will be challenged.
There was a divide in that building.
Oh my God.
Really,
you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
And what you did was, I think, a testament to how that department should be run, and hopefully we kept that going. Because it is important. You're right. You spend more time with these people than you probably family.
With your family, so you might as well just enjoy the run.
Some
right?
people, that alarm clock goes off in the morning, they could do the best job ever, and they just made it. I can't do anything about that, but we need to make it as pleasant as possible for everybody. Everyone walking in the door, whatever door that is, employee door or visitors, whatever.
I also noticed, Anthony, your department has been involved with educating the residents on different changes to either codes or. I think there was a session that you guys had not long ago. I can't recall the name of it, but it was held in the lobby of the department. But you guys take the initiative to invite the public into your department to sit on an afternoon or evening to discuss certain changes that are being proposed.
So right now, one of our big effort is mixed use corridors.
Okay.
So we've always had mixed use in our code, at least as far as I know. You might remember it when it didn't. But with this live local, the advent of live local and some of the effects that could have, there are aspects of live local that we cannot regulate, but there are other parts of the ULDR we can. And so one of the things we were looking at is how should we treat our mixed use corridors, Sunrise, Broward, Federal Highway, our major corridors where you can do this type of combination of residential and commercial. And so, doing an effort like that, especially the citywide, we want to make sure you have access to the materials and information. So we did a combination of things. We went out into the public and did some meetings in different areas of the city, and then we also had them come to the department, and it's been very successful. And it's funny how when you first do it, you can have like a crowd of people. Then as you start getting the information out there, the crowd kind of lessens and lessens and lessens. Mm-hmm. People feeling maybe more comfortable. Mm-hmm. More comfortable, or they're understanding it better. This last one we had on that topic was about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and we had the room set up for about 50, 60 people. I think maybe 12 or 13 showed up, and it was all positive. We didn't get any negative feedback. Of course, as we're moving through the process to get things adopted, we may hear different things moving forward. But yeah, we will do that. And, we've done charrettes several times. Mm-hmm. We're setting something up for South Andrews area. Mm-hmm. I know you and I have talked to them over the years on what they'd like to see. Mm-hmm. The planning effort that we put together around 2011 or so didn't really have the positive effect that we had hoped. It did a little bit, but not enough. Mm-hmm. And so they'd really like to do something else. And so we're organizing with the homeowners associations over there and the businesses over there to get input so that they can tell us what they'd like to see.
Right.
And then we'll use that as a way to draft up something and then start pushing that out to the public for further input and comment.
Yes. Well, that's important, Anthony. I'm so happy that you are taking that initiative under your direction to make sure that you direct the public and the staff to be, unified in the effort to build a better Fort Lauderdale, building a better Broward. And I want to thank you for your time here today, because I know you're an extremely busy guy, and but it's important for you to know that we respect what you do.
Thank you.
And we want to applaud you for all of your efforts. And if there's anything that we could ever do to help and assist you with any of your initiatives to help building a better Fort Lauderdale, a better Broward, please feel free. And we want to make sure that we have you back as time progresses and different initiatives come on board. We want to have you back for another session to discuss those items and bring forward.
Absolutely. You'd be happy to. And part of it's selfish. I live in the city too. So yeah, I want it to be a success. But yeah, no, I'd love to come back. I think this is a great forum, and I really applaud you for making the effort to get this kind of information out, because it really, as they say, it can take a village, right?
Yes, absolutely.
We're not a small city. We're not the biggest city, but we're not a small city. And that can be hard to get information out to people. So with any format, we welcome it.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah, anytime.
All right.